Have you ever wondered how your brain can achieve its peak performance without popping a single pill? Join me as I unravel the mysteries of neurofeedback, answering the most frequently asked questions on your mind. From what on earth is neurofeedback anyway, to can it really enhance my focus and my mood? You've got the questions, we've got the answers. Tune in for today's episode on learning more about neurofeedback and if you're a perfect candidate. Hey, Mental Fitness Matters family. Welcome back to another episode of Mental Fitness Matters. I am super pumped about today's show. We're going to be diving into the most frequently asked questions that we get, myself and my team, on a weekly basis around neurofeedback therapy, how it works, am I a candidate, can it really help, on and on and on. So today's episode is going to be full of information so that you can decide if this is something that is right for you. So if you haven't already done so, make sure you download and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Visit tracyaustin.com on the podcasting areas so that you can subscribe to the podcast as well. But if you haven't done so already, I want you to go back to the latest episode on proactive mental wellness, stop waiting and start mapping. Because in that episode, I shared with you guys the power of brain mapping and how that might be an amazing place to start this process so that you get a better understanding of how your brain works, how your brain functions, and is there something like neurofeedback therapy that can help enhance your mental performance and mental wellness. So today's show, I am answering the most asked questions from our clients, from people around the world, from people that are just curious about what all neurofeedback therapy can do for them. So the very first question that we usually get is, what is neurofeedback? What is this term called neurofeedback? It might also be called brain training or EEG biofeedback. What is it? Is it some type of weird science? What's really going on? Are you changing my brain or changing my personality? So let's start back with the basics. Remember, if you tune into that last episode of Proactive Mental Wellness, I talked about what brain mapping is and what it was and how it helps. Think about brain mapping as that initial baseline, that baseline testing of your brain's mental fitness. Just like if you go to the gym, if you've ever worked with a personal trainer, the very first thing that they do is get your measurements, right? They take your weight, they get your BMI, your body mass index, they take measurements of all of who you are, so that way they can create a tailored plan customized to your goals. Brain mapping is just like that, but it's a mental fitness exam for your mental wellness and your mental health goals. After you've completed that process, neurofeedback training is a tool that can be used to now train your brain to improve its performance in the areas that showed up on that map as something that could benefit from extra work. So let's say if your brain map showed that you have some deficits in your focus. You're not able to kind of really focus and pay attention like you would want to. What if your brain map showed that your memory processing, your short-term memory, those types of things are not as sharp as you would like them to be? What if your brain map also showed that your sleep quality was poor, that you're resting at night, you're going 8 to 10 hours, but you're waking up and you're extremely exhausted? So let's say if your brain map showed all of that, what your neurofeedback program would be able to do would be able to start to retrain your brain on how to get stronger in those areas, improving your focus, improving your memory, helping you get a better and more relaxed and restorative sleep. So neurofeedback training is non-invasive, which just means nothing's going inside of your brain. We're just gathering information from the brain the energy that your brain is producing. I'm going to actually do a show after this one that's going to dive into a more clear process and show you some visuals on what the neurofeedback process looks like. But for now, I'm just going to answer some general questions. But this next episode will get a little bit deeper into how neurofeedback works, what that process looks like, so you can actually see what a training session does. But neurofeedback is a way to train your brain to start to regulate. If you're really, really high in energy, meaning your brain's moving too fast or going too slow, this is going to be all about balance. The more balanced we feel just means the better we focus, the better we handle our emotions and our mood, the better we sleep and recover. And so think about neurofeedback as just that training program for your mental wellness goals. Another question that we often get is, well, how does it work? Well, if it's something that's going to be a training program for my brain, how does neurofeedback actually work? Well, it works by monitoring, measuring your brainwave activity. In this next video, when we're talking and going a little bit deeper into the neurofeedback process, I'm going to show you what your brain waves look like so that you can actually see that we all have brain waves that do certain tasks for us. Our brain waves are responsible for how we focus, for how well we relax, for how well we sleep, for how well we respond to stress. So neurofeedback is a process to train these waves to make sure that they're in balance, helping us feel better. So if you've ever worn any type of monitor or device that tracks, whether it tracks your steps, whether it tracks your heart rate, whether it tracks heart rate variability, whether it tracks your sleep quality and performance, these are all feedback tools, guys, that you're already using to get information on what's going on underneath the surface. A lot of this technology you're already using in some form or fashion. Neurofeedback technology just allows us to see what's happening in one of our most important organs, which is our brain. It gives us that information, that clarity on, okay, how well is my brain functioning? How well is it performing? So it works by measuring these waves called brain waves, seeing if they're doing what they need to do. And then we go through a process of training, giving the brain feedback on when it's doing what it needs to correctly, but also when it's doing what it needs to not so well. And so the only reward that your brain is going to get throughout this process is when it's doing exactly what it needs to. Your only job during that process is to watch a movie, play a game, or hear an auditory sound. And when your brain is in that zone, when it's found that rhythm, when it's in the focus, you're going to be able to see that movie. Your character on the screen is going to move more quickly, or the sound's going to get louder depending on what modality you're training with. But the entire time, you're only getting rewarded or feedback, positive feedback, when your brain is doing exactly what it needs to do to perform at its peak. So think about that. You're on a machine or you're on some equipment that allows you to know when you're getting it right. So with that consistency, with those reps over and over again, your brain begins to build what's called a new neural pathway. Just like I gave the example of physical training, physical exercise. If you're doing bicep curls and you're getting those reps in over time, you're building new muscles. Your biceps will get stronger. Same thing with brain training and brain conditioning. We're helping your brain get stronger in those areas that your map showed that can benefit from a little bit of exercise. The next question, what conditions can neurofeedback help with? Am I a candidate for this? I love to hear this question because I always respond with, we all have a brain, right? We all have a brain. We're all using it every single day. So of course you can benefit. You're a candidate for neurofeedback. It's a non-invasive, which means there's nothing happening here that's going to harm you or hurt you. And it's something that can all help us with being more focused, being more clear, feeling better more often. Because as you're using your brain, we got to find ways to make sure that we stay sharp. And neurofeedback is an alternative to doing that. And so a lot of the conditions that neurofeedback can help with, ADD, ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or attention deficit disorder. Neurofeedback was actually rated the #1 alternative treatment for ADD and ADHD by the American Academy of Pediatrics. And so that's a big deal. The #1 alternative treatment. So a lot of times, whether you're kids or you're an adult, there's oftentimes stimulant medications prescribed for people that have attention deficit disorders. And they've done a lot of research. A lot of the science has shown that doing something like a neurofeedback training or neurofeedback therapy may be something that can be an alternative to going through medication or going on the medication route, or a complement to what you're already doing from a medication management standpoint. So neurofeedback helps with attention and focus, helps with sleep-related concerns, helps with depression and anxiety, helps with post-traumatic stress. So any type of post-trauma, helps with concussions or head injuries. It's a big relief for migraine headaches and things of that nature. So anything really dealing with just peak performance. So let's say you don't have any of the conditions that I just listed off and you're just like, you know what, Trace, I just want to be sharp. I just want to be able to go to work, function every single day and feel like I can show up and perform. Neurofeedback is a tool that can help keep that organ, keep that brain sharp. So just for cognitive performance, memory, And so a lot of people, especially our older generation, they're looking for tools as it relates to preventing cognitive decline. Whether you have a family history or worry about dementia, Alzheimer's, people are wanting to do some type of training to kind of help their brain stay sharp before things get to that area or get to the worst case scenario. So if you're looking for ways to kind of just stay sharp and manage your mental health, neurofeedback can be a tool for you. Is it safe? And why have I never heard my doctor talk about this? We get this question all the time. Yes, it's safe. Again, it's non-invasive. There's nothing going inside of your brain. We're only taking the measurements from what your brain's already producing. Why haven't I heard my doctor mention this? Well, depending on where you are, depending on your location, depending on your doctor's levels of training and continuing education, neurofeedback has been around since the 1960s. And so, of course, technology, science, research has really kind of changed and advanced since then. But if you haven't heard your doctor speaking of this, maybe they have never heard of it themselves. And so I think it's a great time, especially if you're listening to this episode, if you want to ask your primary care provider, your physician, hey, doc, have you heard anything about neurofeedback? Could you do a little research for me and let me know your thoughts? I think all of us in the professional spaces that we hold should be advancing from an education standpoint on new treatment modalities, alternative treatment modalities, other additional therapies that can be a benefit to the clients that we serve. As I mentioned, my background, I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I have specialties and board certifications in bio and neurofeedback. And so that's an additional level of training, an additional level of expertise. And so it may not necessarily be that your doctor's like turned off by it, but maybe they just don't know. And you being able to advocate for yourself and also ask questions and have them do a little bit of extra work on your behalf to say, hey, I'm interested in learning more about this. I'm interested in your opinion on this. Can you tell me more? You can do that. You should do that. Because there are solutions out here for you that don't only just have one treatment option. There's several things that can complement your wellness. You're more than one thing. So you got to think about yourself as a whole. So I encourage you, if your doctor has never heard about that, that's not necessarily uncommon. If you are in the holistic space, in the alternative space, it's more likely that those types of providers are somebody that really knows a lot about neurofeedback training, biofeedback training. They probably have some other things like nutrition that they incorporate into their solutions for their clientele. So I would just say they may not know, or maybe they haven't said anything to you about it because they just didn't know. Now you've stumbled upon some new information that you're curious about. You should definitely go to them with this information and ask them more questions. Reach out to us. Go to tracyalston.com. You can always set up a free consultation, get more information sent to you. We got you on that side of things. Will it change my personality? We get this a lot. Especially when it comes to, okay, we're training the brain. What does that even mean? I love who I am. Yeah, I want to focus better, but I don't necessarily want to lose any part of me. Such a great question. No, it will not change your personality. Neurofeedback sessions are generally designed to help people and help their brains connect more efficiently. So it's really helping with your brain's communication and the efficiency of your brain's connections. So if anything, it's going to make people feel oftentimes a lot more calmer, more resilient to stress, and you can be more clear-headed, giving you that mental edge. And so if there's some things that you really like about your ADD or ADHD in terms of where your distractibility and creativity lies, don't worry about losing that. Worry about now, it's like I can enhance that. Now I'll have some flexibility and control on when I want to dive in and be a little more focused, or when I want to dive in and be a little bit more creative and distracted. It's going to give you a little bit more flexibility and agility within your brain, which is pretty cool. Another question that we get, how long does a neurofeedback session last? So when you come into our office, especially after you've gotten your brain map and we've given you your protocol, normally we're recommending people come into our office and train with us if you're local, and we'll talk about home solutions as well. But neurofeedback sessions last anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, the entire time that you're training with us, sessions are really based on what your brain needs, but most of the time 30 to 45 minutes is the typical length of a training session. How many sessions are usually needed, and will I notice a difference right away? That's the next question that we often get. The number of sessions varies. Again, your training protocol, your training program is based off of your brain map. So it's customized to you. And so how many sessions are needed? It really depends, okay? We normally consider at our offices a round of training to be at least 30 sessions, a minimum of 30 sessions. So depending on what we're treating you for, while you're coming in, you may need multiple rounds of training, just depending on what that looks like. And so for an example, if there's been some head injury, some trauma, some things of that nature, you're going to need a couple rounds of training sessions. So you could be looking at about 60 sessions. And so depending on what those needs, if you're doing just peak performance, if you're just saying, hey, I just want to be sharp, stay sharp, understand where I am, get some information, get a little tools under my belt, you may be looking at one round of training, which is about 30 sessions. And so if you're coming out a couple times a week, that's going to be where you could kind of consider yourself as it relates to how long you'll be in training with us. And we do require maintenance. So think about that too. So not only for your first round or 2 rounds of training, maintenance is something that we encourage. Your brain is like a muscle, keeping yourself sharp. No, you won't have to come in with the frequency of twice a week, 30 to 45 minutes a time. Once you're on your maintenance program, that might look like once a month. That might look like once a quarter. We have college students that come home and just train when they're home from college, and so just depending on what those goals are, what those needs are, everybody's maintenance program looks a little different. But I do let people know maintenance is something that you want to definitely be mindful of throughout this process, because just like your physical body, you don't just stop working out. If you stop working out, there are consequences to that and consequences to your health. So think about your brain health in the same way, in the same path, guys. You want to just do things to just kind of keep those tune-ups rolling so you can keep yourself sharp. Next question. Are there the effects of neurofeedback permanent? I love this because think about, again, your brain is a muscle. You're creating what's called a new neural pathway. So after we do that very first mapping, halfway through your training program, so around 20 sessions or so, we map you again. We want to do another map because we want to make sure that things, number one, are changing, but not only are they changing, can it normalize? Can it create a new neural pathway for you, creating these longer lasting permanent changes? So it's amazing to see where you start, but it's also amazing to see where you're going. So that to answer that question, yes, a lot of the changes that are made through neurofeedback training are permanent and long lasting. The next question, can children do this? What's the age groups here? Yes, yes, yes. And we encourage you to bring them in younger because their brains are like sponges. They're more resilient. They learn quicker. As we get older, it takes us a little bit more time to make these new connections and to really change these pathways. So yes, in my offices, we see people as young as 5 years old. So as young as 5 years old can start this process and really begin to train and really have some good and oftentimes faster responses just because their brain is so flexible and picks up things a lot easier. Okay, so to answer that question, yes, children can do this and should do this, and they are normally prime candidates for training their brain. All right. The next question that we oftentimes get, especially because we get people that are coming in from all walks of life, looking at all different types of treatments for their wellness, does neurofeedback replace my medication? So if you're on medication or medications for any type of mental health disorder or anything like that, we say, no, this does not replace your medication, but oftentimes in cases, it can complement what you're doing from a medication management standpoint. We do have people that are working with us that are like, you know what, I'm trying to step down off of my medication. I do not want to be on medications. So we work closely with prescribing physicians and psychiatrists to make sure that as you're going through this neurofeedback training, if that is a goal for you, we don't say stop your medication. No, keep those things rolling. And throughout this process, there may be opportunities that you can begin to titrate down because your brain, again, is getting stronger. It's beginning to handle its load and handle its own weight. And so there may be room for you to begin to step down off some of your medications. And so you want to make sure that you're speaking in closely with your doctors or your prescribing physicians. We want to make sure that you're introducing them to our team as well, or the team that you're working with if you're not doing neurofeedback training with us, making sure that people are communicating about your journey. especially if you're on medications and you're looking to do something a little different or you're wanting to see if it interferes. So it's not going to interfere with anything you're doing. It's going to definitely complement, but there also may be room to kind of step down and not have to be on as much or medication at all, especially if you're doing an additional therapy like neurofeedback training. Can neurofeedback be done at home? Great question. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you to technology and the advancements in technology. We do have access to remote brain training. So neurofeedback can be done at home. Again, on this next episode that we do, when we take a deeper dive into what neurofeedback looks like and how a session works, we'll be able to kind of show you how home training can be a support to you as well, especially if you can't get into any of our offices. There are some options for you to be able to do some of this training at home and from the comfort of your home. Being able to do neurofeedback at home, especially still guided by a professional, it's convenient, so it does allow for a little bit more convenience. And you're still monitored by board certified providers. And so we're setting up your training, we're setting up your protocols, we're making the adjustments in real time. And the only thing you have to do is get the headset, download our app, and you'll be able to train from where you are. And there are some conditions in which we say, you know what, home training is an option, but not quite right now. There may be some times where we recommend coming into the office first to kind of get started there and then sending you home with a home unit. So it is a case by case situation, but we could go over all those things with you and for you throughout your session. All right. The next question that we oftentimes get is neurofeedback covered by insurance? This is a big one. And it really depends. It depends on your insurance. There's not much coverage out there for brain mapping. That's usually not a covered thing. But I've been doing this since 2010. So over 14 years, 2010 is when I started doing this. No insurance companies were covering it. I've done a lot of work with insurance companies that are in my area. And so thankfully, we have been able to build relationships, build partnerships, get neurofeedback, get the literature and research to these insurance providers, showing our results, showing the statistics, which has really helped us get coverage in areas where neurofeedback was not normally covered. And so there's some partners that we're working with that have been picking up brain mapping on our behalf, picking up neurofeedback training session on our behalf. So I think it depends on the area that you're in and also the access that you guys might have. But for us in the Mooresville, North Carolina area, we are accepting insurance for some of the insurance programs for neurofeedback. So I always say it just depends. It varies your location, but also the insurance providers. Not everybody is covering it, so it really depends on a case-by-case basis. It does not hurt to ask. And we always encourage our clients, advocate. You are your biggest advocate. Pick up the phone and say, hey, I have a provider in my area that's doing this service. I'm already paying for the insurance. I want some coverage. I want to be able to get this covered. They may say no. Call them again. Call, because that is exactly how we've been in position. Our clients have called, we've sent in the results, we've shown the stats, and we've been able to get on some insurance panels specifically as a provider of neurofeedback and brain mapping. So that's how it works. The voice of the people, guys. You're your biggest advocate. They might say no today, but who knows, 6 months from now, it may be a yes. Don't hesitate to ask. All right. Is neurofeedback supported by scientific research? Yes, and yes, it is. There's a lot of science behind what we're doing here with the neurofeedback training. There's a lot of great testimonials out there showing the benefits of neurofeedback, how it's working. There's a lot of success stories, and that continues to grow. That body of literature continues to grow. So make sure you do your research, ask questions, kind of figure out what it is that you have goals for to see if there's any science behind what you're seeking. All right, one of the last questions, can neurofeedback be combined with other therapies? Yes, and we encourage that. We do. Remember I said in the beginning of this, you're a whole person. So take care of your whole self. Neurofeedback training is just a part of your mental wellness. Start yourself off with the brain map. Do a little of the neurofeedback. If you're into other things like counseling, that's a great complement. If you don't want to necessarily do the talk therapy, that's okay. You can do neurofeedback training, but if you have some deeper things that you want to work through and work on, we encourage counseling to be a part of that process. And sometimes people have been like, you know what, I've done talk therapy. That does not work for me. I don't want to have to hash out my problems to anybody. I always say, guys, anything that you've learned in therapy, if you feel like there's been some things that you've learned that does not really work successfully for you, I say don't throw those tools out the window quite yet. Maybe your brain just wasn't ready or able to receive the feedback that it was getting from the talk therapy space. But now that you're going through something like a neurofeedback training, maybe now you have kind of primed your brain, strengthened that muscle, and those same exercises and tools may be more beneficial on the back end. So I definitely think neurofeedback is a complement with other therapies, especially with your exercise, especially with your nutrition. If you're doing anything like yoga or meditation, these are great things that complement and that enhance your neurofeedback experience, okay? I'm going to pause right there. That's going to be all for today's show. I just really wanted to provide you guys with the top frequently asked questions about this process. Hopefully it's giving you some information or a little bit more just clarity on, you know what, is this something for me? Should I try it? If you or a loved one or you know somebody or you yourself are feeling like, I want a little bit more of the answers, I would be curious and interested in knowing more, reach out to us. We can help. And if you don't know, if we're not in your area and you're like, I want to be able to go into the office where I am, reach out to us at tracyalston.com, okay? Go to my website. You'll find my information there. And then we can help link you with board-certified providers in your area. Board-certified providers in your area. I think it's really important for you to link up with somebody who's board-certified, which means that they are trained, they have an expertise around neurofeedback in the brain, and they can help you get started on your wellness journey, okay? Hope this was helpful for you guys. Make sure you tune into the next show. We're going to actually dive a lot deeper into neurofeedback training and the actual process so you can see what that looks like for you. I want you guys to go out, shine bright like the stars that you are. I can't wait to see you soon.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Mental Fitness Matters. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. If you found value in today's show, please share it with others. For more information or to connect with Tracy, you can visit her online and on Instagram at tracyalston.com and on LinkedIn and Facebook at Tracy Alston. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.